Born in Blood by COVID Candy. Chapter 341 Pattern. The direction Liam wanted to take with his swords was clear-cut. It had to be wild. Unpredictable. Dangerous. Something with no reins. But it also had to have form and precision. Versatility and technique. Order emerges from pandemonium, Liam thought with distant eyes. As much as he hated riddles and broad ways of thinking, he had to ponder over his fighting style. The sword didn't control the wielder. The wielder controlled the sword. If Liam wanted a fighting style, he had to dive into who he was first. But his mind was strangely clear and devoid of anxiousness. He was calm. If chaos is consistent, patterns will naturally emerge from whatever it is. In one way or the other, it will affect something in a way that it wasn't supposed to. Like a volcanic explosion. Contrary to belief, it doesn't make the world warmer. It makes it colder by blocking the sun's heat with its plumes of black smoke. Even though the innate nature it has is destruction and heat, it provides coolness in the long term. Or maybe rainfall. It didn't begin with rain. It began with the sun evaporating bodies of water. Which turns into mist. Which becomes a cloud. Which rains again and restarts the cycle. Even life and death, Liam realized, have patterns of their own. People die. Others are born to take their place. A pregnant mother could die with her unborn child. Liam remembered Eve. Liam pushed the memory away. But the child might live despite that. What am I saying? Liam felt the urge to laugh at himself. He was just spitballing random statements one after the other. In reality, he really didn't have any idea what he was saying. no//v-.E, l/b1.N. But it felt right. Whatever, Liam concluded, rising to his feet, I'll figure something out. Liam took out his swords and swung them one after the other. Liam used hone on both his darkness and chaos. Then, he combined both forces with his swords. Obviously, his shadow enveloped everything like a cherry on top. I'll use everything, Liam thought. Then, Liam started to swing. Between each swing, Liam rapidly switched between his black blade, his dusk blades, and his breaker blade. But for each of them, there was a pattern they followed. The black blade already had darkness. A regular slash would release an arc of gaseous darkness. However, the edge of the Odachi was imbued with chaos. For the dusk blades, they both had one edge each. But one of them absorbed darkness, while the other absorbed chaos. The same went for the breaker. Instead of coating its edges, Liam just made the whole thing surge with waves of bright red chaos. Liam was just swinging wildly in the air. After some time, Liam deployed his shadow clones. At once, they began to attack him like real opponents. Now that Liam had twice the mental energy, he could actually operate the shadow clones like they were a part of him. It was like seeing through 4 different perspectives at the same time. Liam's arms and legs continued moving until a pattern emerged. His sword kept changing forms. From black to dusk to breaker. His chaos pearl kept churning out chaos. His core kept surging with darkness. His shadow clones kept attacking him while he defended. Obviously, Liam refrained from using any abilities his shadow clones couldn't use. Months passed. Liam had forsaken food and drink. All that remained was his swords and his thoughts. Slowly, Liam's swings found grace. Slowly, a pattern was emerging. Liam's sword stroke felt random. But it wasn't. At first glance, the fighting style Liam came to discover looked completely unrefined and unstable. It was just a barrage of random attacks. Wide swings. Short swings. Stabs. Diagonal slashes. Vertical swipes. Everything at once. The only thing that wasn't out of sync was Liam's movements. Somehow, he was making it work. Chaos and order. Liam stopped swinging and heaved a long sigh. Sweat and blood dripped from all over him. For 3 months, he'd been swinging continuously, even when his mental energy, chaos, and aura reserves ran out. This art had an incredibly powerful advantage and disadvantage. The advantage was huge. At close range, Liam would completely obliterate his opponent. Defense? What was that? There was no defense that could stop whatever this was. Not with the breaker's power, the black blade's sharpness, the dusk blade's versatility, and the chaos, darkness, and shadow on top of it all. But it also had a major weakness. Fighting at long ranges was not viable. Sure, the black blade provided sharp arcs of darkness that went very fast. But with his utilization of chaos, that effect was lessened to a degree. But there was a catch to this fighting style. Liam wasn't dumb. This sword style had no real substance. But he made it with one thing in mind. Once he was able to integrate void with his sword, the entire sword art would take a 180-degree turn. But for now, this had to suffice. I'll enter the trial tomorrow after a day of rest. Liam heaved a sigh as he ate his remaining food reserves. Liam stood in front of the trial gate with his sword in his hand. Stealing his expression, he took one step towards it, but a shot of pain suddenly seared through his chest, making him grunt. Oh no. Liam grimaced. It was his solar plexus. Oh no, 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 no. Heat gathered at Liam's sternum and spread throughout his body. The root of it all? The Chaos Pearl. It was advancing. Now, of all times? Not here, damn it. Liam cursed as pain usurped his body. He was thrown on the ground, squirming and screaming as his Chaos Pearl underwent a change. To make Liam Roy scream in pain was an achievement not everyone could boast about. A violent vibration ran across Liam's body. As his Chaos Pearl condensed, Liam's mind went blank. He was slipping into unconsciousness. Everything turned to black. Chapter 342 Eyes. When Liam woke up, panic crawled through his skin and paranoia corrupted his thoughts. He was no longer in the inheritance. Currently, Liam was floating amidst a vast expanse of frigid nothingness. A black void. Like the firmament of space. There was no sun here, but his form was clearly visible. Am I dreaming? Liam thought, his wary gaze wandering around the black emptiness. Ominous silence. There was nothing to see. Nothing. Nothing at a. An eye slowly opened in the massive expanse. Otherworldly. There were no words to describe it. It was visceral, with dirty, dark shades of brown, black and red. The iris was not a normal pupil. It was swirly like a hypnotic whirlpool of filthy colors. There were no eyelids. It just opened through the void. Just an eye. And it was gargantuan. 3 times the size of a tall mountain. Liam's heart leapt at his throat. It was like peering down a dark well for several seconds, just to realize something was looking at you all along. His eyes were stuck to the hypnotizing pupil of the giant eye. It was not just one eye. All around the void, small and big irises started to split open and focus on him. Dozens turned to hundreds. Thousands. Hundreds of thousands. Millions. Liam's heart thundered in his ears. Terrifying eyes surrounded him from all sides. There was a deafening silence. Other than the sound of blood rushing through Liam's veins and heart drumming like an engine. What do you want? Liam screamed at the eyes, unable to hide his panic. They didn't respond. They just stared at him. He felt so small. So weak. Naked. Insignificant. Like dust settled at the bottom of an abyssal ocean. Seconds stretched to hours. A fracture of blinding light suddenly ruptured within the void, causing all the eyes present to snap their attention to it. As the light encompassed Liam's vision, his consciousness felt yanked back to his body. Screaming, Liam woke up. His body was covered with layers of sweat, while his breathing was uneven and ragged. For several minutes, he struggled for air, trying to piece together what just happened to him. As his thoughts slowly came to a calm, he steadied his breathing and took deep inhales. A nightmare. This was what Liam wanted to say he just experienced. But he knew it wasn't that simple. This was no dream, Liam thought with a slight frown. It definitely wasn't a dream, he repeated. It was too real. Liam's eyes went a little distant as he recalled the millions of eyes. The void. The rupture of light. The silence. The coldness. Liam shook his head, then creaked his neck below to gaze at his solar plexus, running his fingers across it. Was it this? Liam thought with a scowl. The Chaos Pearl advanced. Was that why he experienced that vision? What was that, even? Liam thought, muttering curses under his breath. There was a long, contemplative silence that followed. Too many questions, Liam eventually thought, throwing the event at the back of his mind. What was the point of mulling over something he had no clue about? This was way over his pay grade. I don't like riddles. Whatever this is, it can wait. Still, Liam's mind always drifted back to the eyes. The terrifying, dreadful eyes. N/shoveled one N. Nevertheless, Liam's attention fell on his Chaos Pearl again, upon which he noticed the stark differences that it now had. The brass alloy that the Chaos Pearl's walls consisted of now shone with a slight metal glow, which was dulled through Liam's chest. It was the same size. But strangely, the aura that flowed through Liam's body completely negated around his Chaos Pearl. World essence completely avoided the organ, creating a dead zone perimeter of 2 inches around it. Liam raised his brows in confusion. Meanwhile, the contents inside the pearl surprised Liam. Instead of increasing in volume, it decreased. At the peak of a rank 2 Chaos Pearl, Liam could churn out 25 large spheres of chaos. Now? He could do only 10. But as it lessened in volume, it increased in something else. Sheer power. It wanted to explode in Liam's chest. The potential energy inside Liam's chaos had become so densely packed that it wanted to explode within itself. Liam cursed loudly. The only reason Liam was able to control his chaos was because of his mental energy. Obviously, his Ashura body provided support for the chaos. But it was more like the vessel or medium for his chaos to flow through. Even for his darkness, Liam used a mixture of his core and mental energy to manipulate it. But the Chaos Pearl was much more arduous and difficult to control. But what if Liam's Chaos Pearl was stronger than his mental waves? Maybe this is why Ashuras always raged. Their Chaos Pearls probably forced them to relieve themselves by releasing it through their bodies. They didn't have mental energy to control their chaos like I do. Liam heaved a long sigh. There was no need to scare himself right now. A moment later, chaos left his core and formed on his hand. It was so damn loud. And so bright. It cast an intense crimson hue over Liam's arms and face, reflecting in his multicolored eyes. It also crackled with little sparks running across its surface. But Liam also realized something else. Where the chaos touched, the aura around him scurried away. What is this? It was like aura was afraid of chaos. Like it was warm air against cold. Liam furrowed his brows in confusion. With his remaining hand, Liam attempted to release some of his darkness. He felt darkness aura flowing through his core and shooting towards his hand. But as it tried to discharge and emerged from Liam's skin, it sputtered. But all that came out were some distorted wisps of black smoke. Nothing else. Silence. Liam's eyes widened as much as they possibly could. Abruptly, he started laughing like a madman. So it's found a way to repulse aura, too? Not to mention, his own? Chapter 343 Goblins. Log in to get LK and view more chapters. Aura wasn't really repulsed, in a sense. It was literally in everything. Humans. Air. Nature. Even most dead things had a similitude of aura connected to them. Thus, even when chaos repulsed matter, it didn't negate it. More than that, Liam's chaos had never disrupted his own spells and techniques. Sure, it repulsed and weakened them to a degree, as seen with Liam's black blade and chaos combination. But it had never utterly distorted them. Liam didn't think it was even possible. But he was proven wrong. No matter how hard Liam tried to conjure up a darkness spell, it failed to leave his body. Mental attacks still worked fine. They were immaterial, after all. But everything else was a no-go. Liam gulped heavily. Didn't this mean the black hole was rendered useless? And by extension, his void? But so was everyone else's. If Liam wasn't able to use any spells, neither was his opponent. Instead of grimacing, Liam smiled broadly. This was fine. It actually wasn't bad. This was actually a sort of anti-magic ability. Still, he had to make sure his void worked. If anything, Liam would rather have void than a strengthened version of his chaos. Deleting matter sounded more enticing than disrupting it. But first, to test how strong it's gotten, Liam thought. Liam pinched the ball of chaos. Now that it was so densely packed with potential energy, Liam could actually handle it. It was no longer a strange, almost gaseous energy with no set form. A similar consistency to it would be a mix of rubber and clay. Liam could stretch, squeeze and pull on the strand of chaos, but even if it tore apart, he could put it back together. It gained a mendable quality. First, Liam used hone on it. The bright crimson energies buzzed and crackled like electricity, but took on a sharp form. Thankfully, hone still worked. Afterwards, Liam put the ball of chaos between his index and middle finger. Then, empowering his fingers, he flicked it horizontally through the air, aiming at the fake dimension's fake wall. Hush! It screamed as it surged through the air. As Liam's chaos flew, it actually accelerated. Paired with Liam's empowered flick, it shot forward like a lightning bolt, closing the distance between the wall and a boom. A thundering explosion rippled across the wall. The noise produced as a result lingered for 2 seconds, before fading into silence. I'd say it's gotten 25% stronger than its predecessor. Good, Liam nodded sagely to himself. I'd have to fine-tune the ratio between the chaos and the black hole because of that, though. A moment later, he tested out whether or not his void still worked. Like Liam thought, it didn't. However, not in the normal sense. The black hole connected with the repulsion effect of Liam's chaos. As long as Liam kept the two forces away from each other, then slowly brought them together, it wouldn't immediately break apart. But there was a power struggle. An imbalance. This meant that Liam's chaos was still perfectly compatible with the black hole, so long as he worked on a solution. Liam was not entering the final trial until he managed to make it work. After several weeks of tweaking and tuning the proportions of the black hole, and several tests, Liam attempted it. And it worked. Liam remerged his chaos and the black hole. Their repulsion and absorption abilities had achieved balance due to the differences in size. Liam just had to make the black hole 25% larger. And a silent void was born as a result. But there were no changes to void itself. Other than its size being a bit bigger and just a little more mendable, as well as lasting longer. Besides that, there were no major changes. After all of that, Liam trained with his sword style for a bit. With all this done, 3 weeks had passed. In the total time that passed, Liam was now 21 years old, plus 10 months. Twilight is probably eating her nails, Liam chuckled. She's probably waiting for me in the final trial this whole time. If she got past all the others. Liam hadn't seen her sword play, so he didn't know whether or not she'd passed all the trials. Liam took a deep breath. He finished all his preparations. His swords were tweaked and enhanced. His condition was at its peak. His thoughts were no longer honed in on the nightmare he experienced. Now, Liam's fierce gaze connected with the final trial. With slow steps, and the black blade gripped in his hand, Liam walked through the final gate. As he entered through, Liam felt his senses mute while his vision went dark. But he could still think. Before he lost his mind in a panic, Eternal Sword's voice rang out. It wasn't glitching, strangely, which was a good sign. A duel is sacred to a swordsman. Never must they forget a soul they have taken. You have done well to come this far. But there can only be one successor to my sword and remaining techniques. You will put your life on the line. The black blade, and the sword of stars. May your swords never chip or shatter. Silence followed. Sword of stars? Why does she deserve a nickname like that? Then suddenly, Liam's senses returned. His vision regained light. It turned out, he was in a cocoon of sorts that enveloped around the last and final trial gate. But as it unveiled, a cacophony of screeches and barbaric noises filled his senses. Time slowed. Liam made a grim discovery. The fake dimension was teeming with life. In front of him. Behind him. To his sides. All around him. Goblins. Hundreds of thousands of goblins. Green-skinned, skinny, obese, tall, short creatures that wore leather armor on their groins and shoulders. They had long, pointy green ears. Humanoid bodies. Their faces were strangely human-like, but disgustingly ugly and deformed. Either they were skinny, or they were insanely obese. There was no middle ground. Some were massive. They wielded clubs of wood and stone, with the bigger ones wielding crude pieces of rock. Liam made another discovery. His heart sank a bit. The fake dimension walls. They were fractured and ripped apart, revealing the outside. Through them, he could see water running through. It was the world's cut. Time resumed. Ah, curses. At once, all the goblins charged him. Chapter 344 Carve. Log in to get LK and view more chapters. Liam was rushed from all sides. The goblins roared from the top of their lungs as they did so. For some of the skinnier ones, their screams were nasally and more funny than intimidating. But the larger variety, the rank 4 ogres, shook the air with their guttural shouts. They were like heavily armored tanks, with their spiky iron armor and massive clubs to smash people to death. Their battle cries created a ferocious tune as they charged as a single horde, converging on the sole human they could see. The sound of gushing water audible from outside the fake dimension was somehow still louder. Till now, Liam had never seen a goblin. Usually, they lived in rural areas like marshes and swamps. Places they could ambush villagers and carriages and whatnot. Goblins had one remarkable quality that separated them from the rest. Their regeneration, raw strength, and speed. Their regeneration was so powerful, in fact, they could even reform entire limbs after they had been cut off. Of course, this depended on their rank. To Liam's eye, the goblins were moving in slow motion. Even though they were enhanced and strengthened somehow. Months upon months of training turned his mind into a laser that focused on nothing else but on how to deliver the quickest deaths. Plus, he had twice the amount of mental energy and aura. In short, as of now, he was a monster. Is this part of the test? Liam thought calmly. Or did they somehow enter through the fake dimension's fractures? The way Eternal Sword phrased it, this was supposed to be a one-on-one duel. Not a damn frenzy. Instantly, Liam's senses spread to their furthest reaches. Liam had 3 different sensory types he was capable of using. Shadow sense, shifter sense, and mental energy. Shadow sense was currently not at its peak. Due to the bright illumination, and the hundreds of thousands of goblins stampeding the ground, the sea of darkness was a hectic mess. The shifter sense, though, was limited in range, but identified each individual goblin around him. It was like seeing through a black and white thermal filter at 360 degrees. Even their heartbeat was audible to Liam's keen ears. Slowly, they were closing the distance. 15 meters. 8 meters. 5 meters, then 3. Shing. Liam's black blade flashed in quick, successive strokes. All the while, Liam stood still. With how fast his swings were, Liam's arm and sword was just a blur. Clearly, he wasn't using his chaotic sword style. Not yet. All around him, long arcs of black slashes formed, and continued forming. They looked stagnant midair. But if one took a closer look, they were indeed moving forward. Just not as fast as Liam was making them. Time resumed. All the slashes that formed spread out in an instant. Hundreds of soft squelching noises accompanied by the spurting of blood rang out. As it continued, the roars slowly snuffed out one by one. The goblins were shredded cleanly apart. Heads flew in the air. Arms, legs, entrails and viscera. Strokes of dark red blood painted the air. From a perimeter of 35 meters, it seemed as though the goblins had been shoved through a human-sized fruit slicer. A disgusting, putrid stench permeated all throughout. Rivers of blood, urine and feces formed on the patches of stained grass. When goblins died, they lost control of their bowels and bodily fluids, similar to humans. Liam looked unfazed. However, the ogres weren't killed instantly. They were way too big to kill from afar, but they were incapacitated due to the darkness burrowing in their insides. Despite this, the number of goblins hadn't waned at all. Liam had merely pushed back the tide. Slowly, the roars were becoming louder. Still, Liam's focus was elsewhere. Where is she, and Zero Velben? When Liam's mental energy spread as far and wide as they could, he spotted her. Through the massive hordes of giant goblins and ogres, his golden eye constricted to a sharp line. His vision found its way through the tiny cracks between the huge hordes of goblins. Way out on the opposite side of the world's cut, roughly 1,000 meters away, was Rien. Twilight. The Sword of Stars. At that distance, Twilight would seem like a tiny dot to anyone else. But to Liam, he could see each individual hair strand on her head. Rien was wearing the same Moyong family robes. Her bone-white hair was much wider compared to before, shortened to neck length. She looked basically the same as the time she entered, but much more mature and polished. Her aura was sharp, too. Colder. All around her, goblins lay dead, their bodies cleanly severed and disintegrated to ash. In her hand was a blindingly bright sword. It wasn't curved at all, and was slightly shorter than Liam's black blade. It was double-edged, flat, and thinner than a fingernail. Her calm, silvery eye was coldly surveying the dead goblins around her. But when Liam caught sight of her, her face flickered with surprise. As soon as Liam's predator-like eyes spotted her, her hair rose, and she felt like hundreds of needles pricked her skin. Rayen scowled. She knew she was being watched. But a moment later, Liam's skin felt a few needle pricks. The Eternal Sword's pills were swallowed by both of them, after all. Just like Liam was watching Rien, Rien was watching Liam. Of course, Rien had her own ways of enhancing her vision. She wasn't using mental energy or had a special eye. Liam's sea of consciousness was much more powerful than anyone near his age. With a quick glance, Liam could tell she extended the range her eye could see by using light as a medium. Liam's eyes narrowed coldly. Rien lightly furrowed her brows. But the goblins were back, and they were surging in even greater numbers. Liam heaved a slight sigh as he took light steps forward, the black blade lightly gripped to his side. Then, he started running straight into the hordes ahead. If there was no path forward to his enemy, Liam would carve one. Chapter 345 Bob. Log in to get LK and view more chapters. It was a massacre. Liam's swords were glimmering with a sadistic thrill. Air, then skin, blood, flesh, organ, flesh, blood, skin, then air again. In and out. In an instant. That was the pattern that Liam's swords followed. Using transfiguration, Liam made his body as light as possible. Against weaker goblins, a simple swing was sufficient. Liam preferred speed over brute strength. And although he could just jump over everyone and avoid carving a path, Liam had another goal in mind. Shing! 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 As green limbs and bloody organs flew overhead, some of it landed on Liam's bare body. His wrappings were in his ring, since he stored it a moment prior. As they made contact with his skin, they didn't bounce off. They were absorbed. Liam was using Admit. Each piece of flesh that entered his body was stored in a separate reserve. There was no major difference between goblin flesh and human flesh, other than the enhanced physical capabilities. Meaning there was no special power Liam could derive from their species. Still, that was not important, being able to use expel was. Shing. 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 They just keep coming. Liam inwardly clicked his tongue as he sliced and diced his way forward. By now, his entire figure was cloaked in blood. Not his own, obviously. An ogre suddenly rushed towards him with a roar, each of its steps sounding like the banging of a thundering drum. The ogre was the size of 6 adults on top of one another, with the muscle of a bodybuilder. Its eyes were disturbingly human. 2 blunt fangs protruded upwards from its bottom lip. In its hand was a giant stone club, studded with crude spikes and jagged edges. As soon as the ogre got close enough, it brought down its club at Liam. It was fast. Like with the dragons, the laws of physics didn't apply to these ugly creatures. Whoosh! In a sense, it looked funny. Like a giant crushing an insect with a sledgehammer. Liam's form flickered just as the club, boom, crushed a dozen goblins into a meaty, bloody paste and sent another dozen flying the distance. Using his dusk blades as a piton to climb onto the club, Liam propelled himself up the ogre's muscular arm. Bang! Then, running forward as a blur, Liam carved around the ogre's giant arm in a spiral fashion. Ryip! The wounds that followed were anything but clean. Muscle, tendons and skin were stripped and ripped out bare. Splshhhh. A rain of dark blood followed. Liam's dusk blades were built to deliver the most gruesome and ugly wounds known to man. It was especially good at negating regeneration abilities. After all, the worse the wound was, the worse the wounds were, the longer and harder it was for the flesh to reform. Liam continued past the arm and arrived at the shoulder, where he continued to make a mess of the ogre's being. To top it all off, his 2 swords reverted to a massive breaker with the edge of an odachi. Shing! And severed off the ogre's thick neck in one fell swoop. Just like that. Granted, ogres were not the most specialized, nor the strongest rank 4 specimens. The only reason they even were in the zenith category was because of their size and regeneration. That was it. But that didn't take away from what Liam did. More than a year in a celestial's inheritance did wonders to his battle prowess. As he severed the beast's neck, the ogre slowly tilted over, falling slowly like a sinking ship. Liam glanced at Twilight's direction. Bright flashes of light kept flaring on the opposite side of the world's cut. Just as Liam was clearing a path towards her, she was clearing a path towards him. Thud. The ogre's body fell, crushing another 100 goblins. Liam moved on, his blade never stopping. Shing. For every 36 goblins, there was 1 ogre. Shing. Liam ran insanely fast like some sort of feral creature, his eyes widened with focus. Shing. Because Liam's body was so streamlined and lithe, his entire form looked stretched and elongated due to how quick he was. Shing. By then, Liam had absorbed roughly 3.3 kilos of goblin flesh in his body. An oval bin. Shing. Bleg. It tastes so bad, Liam thought as the entrails of a torn goblin flew into his mouth. He thought he could nourish his blood and body while he was at it, but it was a grave mistake. From then on, Liam kept his mouth shut. By now, 340 meters were cleared between Liam and Twilight. There was 1,000 meters between them, but Liam and Twilight both cleared roughly 300 meters each. Obviously, Liam had cleared out more since he was much faster, but Rian wasn't far behind. Both paid attention to each other's sword styles. Whether or not this goblin frenzy was a part of the test, it was useful for both of them to assess their sword techniques. At times, Rian's figure turned into a formless light, sort of similar to Liam's dark wraith body. Unfortunately, Liam had lost that ability too once he attuned himself to the triumvirate. Eventually, the two got close enough that their auras and mental waves overlapped and clashed. The duel was near. But the goblins just kept coming. It was like they were naturally born here, which they probably were. Liam grew tired of them. He summoned a good chunk of the darkness aura in his core. But it formed into a massive arc as a result of him using hone on it. Then, Liam let it loose. Shying. It was like mowing a lawn made of flesh. Liam's arc shot through the lines of goblins and finally cleared a path for him and Twilight to come face to face. It was just temporary, though. It seemed like the duel would occur while they fought off a third party at the same time. Twilight flicked the ashes off her blade. "You sure took your time," she said coldly. "I waited entire months until you arrived at the final trial." Silence. Liam didn't respond, neither did he attack instantly. Better to feign weakness. "Once I'm done with you," she said with furrowed brows. "I'll come for that shadow demon prick." Silence. Liam raised his brows when he remembered something. Right now, he wasn't disguised as Liam Royce. He was disguised as Bob. Chapter 346 Invisible. Log in to get LK and view more chapters. Liam said nothing as Rian warily scanned his figure. There was absolutely no need for him to reveal his hand. When weak, one must feign strength. When strong, one must feign weakness. Through the king's eye, Liam could read Rian's mental waves. And since his mental faculties were twice as strong, he could actually deduce coherent sentences from her mind. But it was still choppy and missing parts, and a rank 3C of consciousness was capable of hyperfast thoughts. Novel B1N. He, similar, prick. She thought. Sword, fast, dangerous. Keep, distance. Those were the thoughts Rian had. However, they were disciplined, and Liam couldn't deduce her fighting plan. At the same time, she felt calm, proud, and confident. That said, Liam thought of the ways to use this disguise to his advantage. The first was using fear. Fear made the legs go soft. Ever since Liam had the triumvirate body, he could shapeshift his body in accordance to a grim illusion. He could manipulate hair, skin, texture, eyes, flesh, color, and more. What if he made himself look like an abomination? Similar to the one time Liam made a Zenith kill himself from terror alone. But on the other hand, simply keeping the cards to himself was also fine. That's what Liam decided to do. Fear could happen gradually, after all. "Oi," on a serious note, Rian said with a firm voice. "Why is this inheritance riddled with issues? My recall rune didn't even work at times." If Rian knew who she was talking to, she would instantly attack without even a second thought. "Wait, recall rune? Recall rune?" Liam asked slowly, arcing his brows. His face turned a little dark. The atmosphere grew a little frigid. The goblins were near again, but Liam sent another wide slash of darkness and quieted them briefly. Rian did the same on her side, using a wide arc of bright light to turn the surrounding goblins into ash. It seemed like the two were in a momentary truce. "Recall rune?" Liam repeated again. Rian furrowed her brows slightly. A moment later, she took out a small, circular slab of white metal from her ring. "This? You've never seen this before?" Rian furrowed her brows. Liam stared at the rune. Indeed, he'd never seen it before. Slowly, Rian's lips formed into a broad smile. Then, she burst into an incredulous laughter. "You seriously didn't get this? So you've been resting in between your trials instead of restarting them with peak condition instantly? You couldn't even repeat a trial to maximize your understanding of the sword, either?" Silence. Liam's face was clouded with darkness. This whole damn time. He'd been under a handicap. He didn't get any damn recall rune. Instead of recovering instantly, he had to rest. He hated that word, too. But this also meant something else. Twilight had the opportunity to repeat her trials constantly to get the maximum benefit. Which meant that, even if this was a battle of swords, Liam probably wouldn't win. No, Liam interrupted his own line of thought. She's not invincible. I can win. Rian noticed the change in atmosphere and readied her sword. The distance between the two was still roughly 60 meters. The goblins were rushing back in, but neither of the two paid them any heed. They were mere nuisances. The only thing they had to worry about were the ogres, but they were further back compared to the rest. All three of Liam's swords were bloodthirsty. Even the breaker. They correlated with whatever emotion Liam was going through, after all. Should I use it from the get-go? Liam thought. No, I'll wait and draw out her techniques. In the first place, she might have gotten something I didn't. I'll practice caution. Liam's sword stance was defensive. He kept the odachi at his side, but it was angled in a way that could cover all of his sides. Also, his body had reverted to its normal form. Now, he waited for Rian to. Fast. Rian turned into light. Liam felt a warm flash of light growing hotter behind him. He turned around just in time to intercept the blindingly bright sword with his odachi. Clying. If Liam didn't have his triumvirate body, he definitely wouldn't have been able to sense the attack. Why is she so fast? Rian flashed again. This time, from his side. Liam felt his skin rise with danger from strange angles. Shing. Liam deflected the blade, but a cut ripped through his rear. And it wasn't even from Rian's sword. It seared through Liam's flesh, incinerating a handful of muscles into flakes of ash. What is she using? Liam thought subconsciously, brow slightly furrowed. As Liam's blood restored the wound, Rian flashed again. Cling. But Liam successfully evaded and deflected the blade. And yet, another cut formed on his side, turning another handful of his skin into ash. Liam lurched backwards to create space. An ogre attempted to crush him into paste with its club. Boom. But Liam evaded. Instead of killing it, Liam landed on top of the ogre's bald head. Liam's eyes narrowed at Rian. Rian stopped flashing and didn't pursue him any longer, her radiant form returning human. The goblins had surged in by then, but an arc of light severed those near her from the waist. What is she using? Liam thought again, his gaze fixed on Rian. Her blade isn't fast enough for my eye not to spot. The gears of Liam's mind were grinding for an answer. Is she using light to hide another sword somewhere? But why is it invisible to me? Rian's speed was something Liam knew straight off the bat. Nothing was faster than light. Obviously, light elementals could not tap into that ridiculous power, if it existed in the first place. However, they could imitate it, sort of like how Liam faked a black hole's gravitational pull. It wasn't impossible. Just difficult. But hiding something from Liam was probably harder. The King's Eye pretty much caught everything at 4K, slow MO resolution, and it could even see mental energy. Is this her style? An invisible sword, Liam thought. Twilight smiled mockingly at Liam's momentary retreat. More than 24 darkness and light chakrams formed around Twilight, shrieking as they formed. Chapter 347 Laughter. Liam's face remained aloof as he saw the chakrams forming around her. Right after, a few tendrils emerged from the chakrams, a mix of light and dark, creating twilight-based weapons. Toys, Liam thought with contempt. All there to pull Liam's attention away from the real issue. The most dangerous thing right now was the invisible, incinerating blade. Not only was it out of sight, it was capable of turning Liam's powerful body into ash. The only reason Liam felt its presence was due to his senses warning him of the hidden danger. But if it was just that, Liam wouldn't have been slashed 3 times with the sword. He was purposely being misled where it was. There's more than one. When I try to evade it and the sword in her hand, she slashes me with the other. And now, she's got more than 24 different weapons to use. Should I just use my Ashura form and clobber her to death? What if she uses her recall rune and manages to exit this place? In the first place, my Ashura form isn't as fast as her light, and I can only hold it for about 2 to 3 minutes. As Liam came to that conclusion, 2 full seconds had passed. Doubling the mental energy of a cultivator had honed their focus and mind to a scary degree, allowing for almost instantaneous deductions. All the while, the roaring ogre Liam was perched upon tried to swat him off like he was a fly, restlessly thrashing around. "Are you gonna hide up there for the rest of the fight?" Ryan sneered. "Come down." Liam smiled crookedly. "Make me." Twilight looked at Liam with contempt burning in her eye. "You're just as annoying as him." All of her chakrams suddenly shot towards the ogre's bulging stomach, ripping through its entrails and siphoning away its life. "Nov, lb, in." The ogre attempted to swing his club again, but looked anorexic after 10 seconds. With no more energy left in its body, it started to fall, and Liam accompanied its descent. As Liam fell, Ryan's form started to beam with light. HHMM. Another flash was incoming. Liam contemplated whether or not he should use his sword style. By the end of it, he chose not to. There were still too many things he didn't know about Twilight's techniques. More importantly, Liam's chaos reserves were not as vast. And the destructive sword style that Liam developed burned through it like gas. Thus, Liam's black blade turned into the little demons. The Odachi wasn't fit for the job. The breaker was too slow and too titanic. The dusk blades were perfect. Before she flashed, Liam threw a dozen different shadow bombs on the ground. They exploded with black smoke and spread in every direction, but Ryan was undeterred. Wherever her light touched, the dark gas evaporated. But Liam knew as much. It was meant just to deter her slightly, along with the goblins nearby. Cling. Clang. Shing. Liam's 2 dusk blades looked like black streaks as they clashed against Ryan's 24 chakrams, her light sword and sharp-tipped tendrils. An obnoxious clangor filled the rowdy fake dimension. Liam was so fast. All his swings were just blurs that overlapped with each other. As of now, Liam's body was incredibly streamlined and slim, giving him a boost of speed. Liam's blood bonds left his inner world and covered his flanks and rear. The apex hawk, death wolf and black hunter were basically damage sponges. Although they were each strong in their own right now, they weren't viable for offense. On top of it all, Liam was silently weaving together a cocoon of sanguine strings to catch Ryan by surprise. He was hiding the wafer-thin needles with his illusions, and they... Boom! An explosion of blinding light suddenly took over the battlefield. In excruciating detail, Liam felt layers and layers of his skin melt apart, then slowly reform under his regeneration. He flew through the air, over a sea of goblins and ogres, and Ryan followed suit, aiming to finish him off. It was clear that she realized who she was fighting. She was using mind edge. Enough games, Liam thought, his solar plexus burning with chaos that enveloped his 2 dusk blades. A massive chunk of mental energy entered the slash inside his sea of consciousness. Liam felt everything retract and sharpen. Enough playing with my food. Ryan still continued with her trajectory, aiming to finish Liam off while he still soared through the air. But as her chakrams and invisible swords got close to Liam, they wobbled with disruption and just sputtered out of existence. When she swung across Liam's waist, she expected her chakrams, invisible swords, and tendrils to slice into his skin. Now, there was only her physical sword. Cling! And it was blocked a second later. Ryan tried to flash to safety. It didn't work. She was too close. Too close to Liam, too close to that strange, bright red energy. And she couldn't escape. Right now, Twilight was like a panther trapped with a lion. Fear. Fear tainted her mental waves and gripped her heart. Clang. Then came the chaotic swings that Liam called a sword style. Shing. With just one sword, Ryan did her best to deflect and dodge Liam's barrage of strikes, swipes and stabs. Clang. Shing. Cling. It was an admirable effort. Shing. But she depended too much on spells and her light. Liam's sword started to claim entire pounds of flesh. The dusk blades stripped skin off. The dusk blades cut muscles off. And the breaker broke bones. Goblins attempted to intervene, just to be swept up in his flurry and get violently butchered. It was a beatdown. From pride and confidence, to fear, to terror, and now, to despair. In a last-stand attack, a honed, blade-shaped mass of Rien's mental energy tried to pierce Liam's mind, but Liam ducked under just before it rendered him brain-dead. Shing! Using an octopus tendril paired with a clean swing, Liam seized Rien's left arm. Shing! Followed by her right hand. Bang! Followed by her head. The last thing Rien saw before her vision went dark was Liam's crooked smirk and real appearance. Victory. Liam had done it. Silence. There was no grand announcement. Liam waited patiently. The goblins suddenly froze. Liam swept around in confusion. Silence. A low, sadistic, and spine-chilling laughter that sounded more like a continuous wheeze grew louder, until it became a sonorous laugh. Liam's heart sank. Chapter 348 Vessel. Wicked laughter filled the fake dimension. Liam felt a primordial dread radiating from its fractured walls, which was now in tatters and flickering as though it was broken. The goblins and ogres were still frozen as though they were mannequins. Even Liam didn't know how to react to what was happening. The laughter just sounded too vile and obnoxious, but that wasn't where the dread came from. N/1N. Voom. Ahead, a circular entrance spread open from the ground, upon which a figure slowly hovered above. Half-head. That was the first word that came into Liam's mind when he saw the figure that emerged. A fitting name. The figure wore filthy brown rags. Pallid, with a hunched back. Barefooted. One of his eyes was black, and the other was dark red. A broad grin was on his face, which displayed the ugly teeth inside. Wrinkly face and sagging skin. His entire figure was marred with scars and cuts that seeped with droplets of blood. And the top of his head was missing. Just a few inches above his graying eyebrows. It looked cleanly sliced off, displaying the brainy insides. Liam stared at him wide-eyed, his muscles tightening. No matter who it was that had his head cut off like that, they would not be able to survive. With grand gestures and a raspy voice that sounded more like a hiss, the man spoke. So. We finally meet. I have to say, I loved your performance. Not a moment of boredom, I tell you. Even after I handicapped you like that, you still pulled through and won. Brutal, brutal what you did to her. No mercy. Just how I like it. And that explosive energy. Familiar. Very familiar, but I cannot put my finger on it. The man nodded to himself repeatedly. Liam gulped. What is happening? Liam inwardly cursed. The grip on his sword tightened. Is this the eternal sword? Half-head shook his head dramatically. Me? Eternal sword, he uttered darkly, anger creeping into his tone and face. Oh no. Half-head could hear Liam's thoughts. Me? Look at me. Look at what he did to me. He did this to me. He did. Boom. 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 A dozen ogres suddenly exploded with a rain of blood, guts, and viscera. An abrupt silence followed the furious outburst. Liam took a deep, shaky breath. His mental energy was low. His blood was not at its fullest. And his chaos was nigh empty. Liam was trapped. The fake dimension trembled hectically. Water started to pour in from all the fractures. The cold water gushed forth and flowed through Liam's feet. Slowly, the water level was rising. Apologies, apologies, Half-head said with a loud laugh. Don't hold it against me. Ever since I had my brain lopped off by that handsome bastard, I can't control my emotions. Liam flinched. The old man screamed the last part of his sentence. But now, he was back to smiling. It was like the outburst never happened, and he was back to being cheery. What do you want? Liam asked with a strangely calm voice. This was certain death. There was no doubt about that. Trapped with a half-dead, half-head cultivator with the ability to explode things was definitely certain death. Whatever Liam said or did would determine if he breathed air within the next few moments. But in no way was Liam going to take it sitting down. Right now, he wasn't even thinking, hence the expressionless look on his face. Ah. Right. What do I want? I don't know, to become something other than a vessel of pure hatred and vile disgust? To find purpose other than an empty, unfulfilled revenge? Boom. 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 Another series of goblin and ogre explosions occurred, coloring the steadily rising water with blood. Here and there, organs and heads ran through the foamy streams of murky liquid. Silence. Liam took another deep breath to calm his nerves. Halfhead was volatile. Bipolar, in a sense. A question could tick him off and mark Liam's death. He had to ask the right questions, and without provoking or angering the old man. All the while, the water was slowly rising. And the fake dimension would break apart. What do you want from me, I mean? Liam asked calmly, moving slowly to where Rien's corpse was. The water reached up to his shins now. What unfulfilled revenge? He questioned. Silence. Halfhead grumbled a curse as he waved his hand. With a flash of light, another figure appeared in the fake dimension. It was a handsome man with glorious features. Black and white hair. Clean-shaven and sharp-eyed. He looked young, but looked almost scholarly. It was clear who this was. The Eternal Sword. The Eternal Sword spoke with a warm smile. You have done well to pass all the trials and win against your opponent. Now, you shall receive the rest of my teachings and techniques. May we meet in the celestial realm, my heir. Boom. Then, the Eternal Sword exploded. But there was no blood. It was not real. It was a fake. The water was up to Liam's knees, now. Long story short, the old man continued. We fought. He cut off my head. Left me to die. I lived. Then he left for the celestial realm. But not before he made his inheritance. It took me time to break it down, the old man grumbled, gazing at the cuts and wounds on his body. But I did. And I killed the anatomized will he left behind. I've killed him over, and over, and over, and over again. But there's less satisfaction every time. The old man sighed. Silence. Liam arched his brows slightly. Subconsciously, he was still scooting closer to Rien's body. You still haven't answered what you want from me, Liam said after a prolonged pause. The old man exploded into laughter, then looked at Liam with a dark glint in his dark eyes. Liam had arrived beside Rien's corpse, which bobbed up and down the water beside the goblins. All he needed to do was take the recall rune out of her ring and hope it would work. It was all he could hope for. All the while, Liam's gaze was still connected with Halfhead. Halfhead waved his hand. More than 24 robed skeletons appeared beside him, all wielding various kinds of swords. If I can't kill the Eternal Sword, he said with a toothy grin, I can make sure he never gets an heir to accompany him. Chapter 349 Home. Before Halfhead could complete his sentence, Liam lurched for Rien's arm. Liam knew he couldn't be reasoned with. The old coot was missing half of his brain, and was more unstable than Liam's chaos. And he had defeated a Celestial's anatomized will, whatever that was. That put him at the level of a rank 6 powerhouse or even more. Thus, Liam had two choices. First, make a run for the fractured walls. Most probably, the range of Halfhead's control couldn't go past the fake dimension. There was one reason Liam thought this. Halfhead was not alive. How did Liam know? Halfhead's aura was a mix of dark red and black energy. In fact, his whole body was composed of this material. Obviously, Liam didn't know what those energies were. But there was neither mental energy nor aura around him. Not a wisp. Not to mention, Halfhead could not possibly survive for so long with such wounds. He was basically a vessel at this point. But this choice, like the other, was a major gamble. The other choice was the recall rune in Rien's ring. The only reason Liam liked this plan over the former was because of the way the inheritance was set up. One thing was for sure, Liam knew that Halfhead could not produce those glittering runes that provided the Eternal Sword's techniques. The inheritance probably worked as a factory to produce them repeatedly. And the recall rune was obviously among them. Although Liam wanted to use Honed Void to break apart the inheritance from the inside, it would simply take too much time. And there was too little chaos for him to even consider it, or even fully transform into an Ashura. All he could do was semi-transform and strengthen his body with transfiguration. Then, in one fluid motion, Liam reached for Rien's space ring, cleared away the mental energy from it, and hectically scrambled to find the recall RU. Halfhead snapped his fingers. Liam felt like something was growing in his stomach, causing thick veins to bulge across his body as he tried to push it down. An invisible force was trying to expand his insides, sending violent vibrations throughout his form. If one looked at Liam, they'd see two versions of him. Sort of like a mirage or an afterimage. Liam was exploding. But he hadn't. At least, not yet. In real time, he was fighting against the expanding force growing in his body. Liam felt like his organs were degenerating as ethereal waves of dark red and black energy started to seep into them. The only reason his Chaos Pearl and core weren't shattered already was because Liam was using the goblin meat he had stored as a type of sponge. It was agonizing, but Liam's tolerance for pain had steadily risen throughout the past few years. Liam attempted to use transfiguration to combat the destructive force, succeeding only in lessening its effect. The inevitable came. Boom. Like a balloon bursting, Liam's entire figure combusted into strings of biological mass and bright blood. Cracks spread across his sea of consciousness like a broken mirror. Instantly, his ears popped. His nerves went numb. But he wasn't dead. Somehow, his centers of power were still safe. And his most important organs, the heart and the brain, were still functioning. But Liam's consciousness was slipping. Darkness took over his vision, leaving only vague silhouettes. His senses became muffled, as though he was underwater. Which he probably was. The connection between Liam and his swords was slowly fading. His body looked like it had passed through a meat grinder. Death. No doubt, this was death. He ran from it this long, but in the end, it was inevitable. Silence. Seconds felt like hours. Unlucky, Liam thought wryly. Thinking hurt. He'd done all he could. It was not a matter of him not succeeding. It was a matter of succeeding not being an option. It is what I. Tap. Something pressed against Liam's body as he sunk deeper into the water. It was warm to the touch, and his shifter skin, which could sense luminosity, felt its brightness. The recall rune. Just before the invisible force grew in Liam's stomach, he actually managed to fling the rune out. N.O.V-E-L-B-I-N. But then he exploded. But here it was. Liam used all the remaining blood in his body to transfigurate himself one last time. Slowly, a black octopus tentacle sprouted from Liam's side, where the recall rune was. It extended and wrapped around the rune before a stream of water could pull it away. Then, Liam gripped it as hard as he could. It was clear that Liam was attempting to crush it. Come on, Liam exerted all the effort he possibly could without shattering his mental sphere. Come on, he repeated. Little cracks formed around the recall rune. And eventually. KRSH. It broke. Liam's form was seized away, yanked upwards towards the fake dimension's roof. Due to the sudden movement, Liam instantly lost consciousness. Light basked him, causing the sea he was drowning to brighten, like a dying star reborn anew. It looked even more majestic when he emerged from its dark depths. No, Halfhead shouted desperately. He snapped his fingers again, but there was no explosion this time. No. Liam was gone. He flew upwards and upwards through the walls, in an umbral state of semi-awareness, and with no understanding of time. All he knew was that he was alive, along with vague senses that hinted to where he was. Right now, he was flying above the world's cut, judging by the forceful waves of gushing water shooting past him. Then, he was in the air. Somewhere above the world's cut. Then, Liam felt a familiar sensation running through his flesh and muscles, repairing his degenerated figure. Though, strangely, Liam still felt the dark red and blackish energies infecting his muscles. Slowly, Liam felt the cracks on his sea of consciousness being slightly repaired. Enough for him to open his eyes without feeling pain. The first thing Liam saw when he opened his eyes was a broadly grinning Ucladd and the elders of the Temple of Shadow. Liam closed his eyes to sleep again. Finally, he was back home. Chapter 350 Details. Liam didn't know how much time had passed. He'd drifted on a fine edge between life and death. The cracks on his mental sphere were very much there. All Ucladd did was press them together so they didn't fall apart. Another grim detail Liam realized was the numb pain that ran across his body. They were the black and red energies, clinging to Liam's body. Whatever that filthy half-head infected him with. And the spots where it resided, Liam felt a slow but steady agony. Everything else, though, got better. He'd been getting baths by Elder Jane and Aki during his slumber, and he no longer resembled a desecrated corpse. It was time for him to awake. Liam opened his eyes and instantly winced, painfully aware of each little ache that ran across his injuries. Liam lived for one reason alone. Transfiguration and his blood. And dumb luck. If the rune didn't work, I'd be 6 feet under right now, Liam squeezed in a thought, then sat up with squinted eyes. He was in a large hall room, lying on a soft bed, wrapped in tight bandages. Surrounding him were elders, familiar and foreign. Elder Ryu, Aki, Orisa, Jax, Virium, Jane, along with Krell, Ruth, Maeve, Adrian, Jargon, and finally, Ucladd. But there were too many new faces that Liam didn't recognize. The temple had grown. Liam's gaze brushed past Ucladd. The man looked much skinnier compared to before. His cheekbones were poking through, and his white hair had noticeably lost its luster. Most of his powerful aura had waned. Everyone was silent, with different expressions on their faces. Loud sounds could definitely damage Liam's mental sphere, and they didn't want to worsen his condition any further. Jargon looked proud and elated. Ryu had a broad smile on his face. The rest of the elders were happy to see Liam alive. Others looked at him expectantly. Ruth put up 2 fingers as a greeting gesture. Krell gave a firm nod and a smile. Though, everyone felt their hair slightly perk up at his sight. Riddled on the bed with countless injuries, bandaged head to toe. Yet, they still felt like Liam was a threat to their lives. Had us worried, kid, Ucladd spoke in a low voice and a slight smile on his skinny face. You're doing worse than me, and I don't even know how that's possible. Can you fill us in? Liam groaned and winced. His face went through a series of pained expressions as he stabilized his thoughts. A cracked mental sphere did not mean death. It was fixable with time and rest. It was more like a head injury, like being hit on the back of the skull with an iron hammer. Essentially, that's what Liam felt like. Inheritance was broken down, Liam said with a strained tone. Some maniac with half a head wanted revenge against the eternal sword and tortured those who entered his inheritance. Almost made me explode. There was a contemplative silence as everyone digested Liam's words. A celestial's inheritance. Broken into? How? Explode? How? Ucladd voiced, arching his brow. I'm not sure myself, Liam replied. But I'm guessing it has something to do with this black matter in my body. Can you not cure it? Liam asked with furrowed brows. Ucladd paused for a second, a bitter look on his face. He shook his head. I tried, but couldn't succeed. Any time I tried to forcibly remove it, it rooted itself deeper into your nerves. Liam grimaced. His Chaos Pearl core was just fine, thanks to the layer of goblin flesh. It acted like a shield. And due to its regenerative properties, it wasn't as affected against the black substance. But the rest of his body was an entirely different story. In short, if Liam was composed purely out of white strings, there were black threads tightly interwoven with them. Even if Liam transformed his body composition to something else, the black threads would still follow it. It's the whole deformity problem all over again. But even worse. If it hasn't killed you yet, you're okay. Just work on getting your mind fixed, Ucladd said reassuringly. What happened while I was away? Liam asked, flinching at another pang of pain. I'll fill you in, Ucladd said with a serious voice. But there's someone that wants to meet with you, and he can't take no for an answer. The door to the space creaked open. Hand of Light walked in with a grave expression, along with North Star and Yarway. The rank 6 powerhouse himself and his sons were here. They looked the exact same. A year or two was nothing to high-ranking cultivators. Nov, LB, 1N. Quan glanced at Liam with a severe, assessing look. A pure sense of superiority and authority radiated from him. But his presence didn't pain Liam. North Star and Yarway glared at him too, but it wasn't as intimidating as the giant that was Hand of Light. Liam's sense of power was skewed due to being around a powerhouse. Even rank 4 cultivators could potentially kill Liam if he wasn't prepared. Quan said nothing for several seconds. Silence. Tell us what happened, Quan said severely. Why is Rian not here? Liam heaved a long sigh. He took his time when answering. Ucladd wanted to speak for him, but Quan glared at him not to. The air grew tense. All eyes were on Liam to see how he would respond. The inheritance was a trap. The eternal sword's anatomized wool was broken into by an old man with half a brain. Said eternal sword had done that to him thousands of years ago and left him to die. Silence. Quan's face was as hard as ever. And Rian? He asked. Silence. Liam paused, then flinched again due to a sudden pain. The last trial was a duel to the death, Liam responded, rubbing his temples. North Star and Yarway grimaced simultaneously. And, Quan said with a deep voice. Continue, boy. Instantly, Liam felt annoyed. He flinched in pain again, and his intrusive thoughts came out as a consequence. And I cut off her limbs and severed her head. Chapter 351 Plague. Oops. I didn't mean to say that out loud. North Star and Yarway's eyes widened with anger, while Quan was expressionless. The pressure in the room slightly increased, causing Liam's grimace to deepen. I'll remind you to keep your auras in check, Ucladd said with a dark voice at the three. The vast hall darkened with shrieking shadows. A duel to the death was an exception to the rule, Ucladd reminded. Slowly, the pressure faded, and Liam's head felt relief. Leave now. You have what you wanted, Ucladd told Quan with a deadpan tone. The elders were prepared for a fight to break out. Their hands twitched with restraint. Quan lingered for a few seconds, his cryptic gaze still fixated on Liam. Silence again. Liam knew he couldn't lie. Even if there were circumstances beyond his control, Liam told the truth. Quan wasn't stupid. He could tell straight away if Liam blamed her death on Rian. So, even though it was blurted out by mistake, Liam stood by it. After a few seconds of fragile silence, Quan turned around and left wordlessly, followed by North Star and Yarway. The room's tense atmosphere melted away, but the silence remained. What happened while I was gone? Liam asked as they left. Ucladd's gaze turned serious. A lot of things. The world is in, well, a fragile state, he said. For now, rest. You can't do much with a cracked mind. Someone will fill you in once you're back to decent health. Liam wanted to protest, but everyone quickly left using their shadows. It was a little too quick to be normal. Even Jargon left as quickly, which he would almost never do without Liam's permission. It seemed they'd been instructed to do so before Liam had a chance to say anything. Nevertheless, the room was emptied once more, and Liam was by himself. Silence. It was just him and his thoughts. It's a shame I didn't get the full inheritance, Liam mused. There must have been something incredible for the final trial. Liam felt a bitter taste in his mouth. In his sea of consciousness, Liam used his mental energy to slowly fill in the cracks on his mind. And there were many. This would take a month at least to repair. Liam replayed the memories of the inheritance. I should have trusted my gut feeling, damn it. Greed cost me time and energy. A full 2 weeks passed before Liam managed to regain most of his mental faculties. As soon as he had the strength to think without flinching, Liam slowly stripped away his bandages to take a closer look at his condition. The outside of his body was relatively normal, besides being slimmer due to losing so much blood. Most external wounds had healed, and even Liam's stomach was patched up. But the infection remains. What Halfhead gave Liam was not actually a virus. It didn't spread, and it didn't make him sick. It's getting worse and worse the more time passes. It just made him feel pain, and it was getting worse. On Liam's command, darkness spread to his hand and blazed. Thankfully, my core still works. Liam used chaos next, but as it spread through his hand, he realized something. The blackish substance was actually pulled into the chaos as it flowed past. Then, when the chaos dissipated, the infective matter was what remained. Liam did the same thing again, and the plague-like substance was sucked in again. I can expel it, Liam realized with a smile. For the next few minutes, Liam tried to pull away the black substance from his left hand. It was like using a magnet to manipulate ferrofluid through a glass container. It was a painful process, since wherever the black substance passed, Liam felt the degeneration that came with it. But it was the same volume throughout. All of the murky substance soon gathered in Liam's left arm and hand. From his entire body, that is. Since his left arm took the burden of the degeneration, it basically went numb with pain. One last time, Liam used chaos to pull away the infectious substance. Contrary to Liam's expectation, the substance refused to leave Liam's hand. Liam cursed. Novel B, 1N. A few more hours passed as Liam tried the same thing. It still wasn't expelled. Not even a bit. Got ahead of myself, Liam thought with furrowed brows. Maybe I can gather all of it in one arm, then use expel? Before doing that, Liam made the tip of his finger explode. Boom. Liam grimaced slightly as a shockwave spread throughout the hall. Ucladd suddenly appeared. It hasn't been 2 weeks and you're already back to explosives, he asked with a reprimanding voice. Nothing else to do, Liam said, examining his fingertip. His eyes widened a moment later. Even though his fingertip wasn't there, there was an ethereal black form there instead. A finger. Made from the plague-like substance. Liam curled his finger. And it actually moved. What is this? Liam muttered under his breath. Even Ucladd looked taken aback. No clue, he shook his head. What did you get hit by? I couldn't tell. I was too busy exploding, Liam countered, idly curling his ethereal finger. Slowly, Liam used his blood to speed up the healing process. Exploding an arm versus exploding a fingertip was massively different in their healing times. Since the wound was little, even though Liam used expel, he didn't have to wait exorbitant amounts of time. Speeding up the healing process uses a large volume of blood. Even a fingertip requires at least 3 to 4 liters of it. And by the end of it, the black substance was still there. Unless I do something, this'll just get worse until I won't be able to use my arm entirely. There was one thing he could do. But it came with a risk. I don't take it you or anyone you know can help, right? Liam asked quietly. Ucladd shrugged bitterly. Whatever it is, it's a rank 6 attack. Not even Quan could help, and he wouldn't want to. Liam shook his head at that. A few seconds of silence passed. Then, with a resolute look in his multicolored eyes, Liam manipulated his chaos pearl to exit through the cage of goblin flesh. Chapter 352 Corruption. Liam's chaos pearl left the protective shield of goblin flesh and slowly drifted towards the mass of plague-like substance. There was one reason Liam was doing such a thing. Chaos absorbed the infectious, almost ghostly material with no issues whatsoever. But instead of getting rid of the problem, it took it from one place to the other. What Liam needed was for it to disappear entirely. But even Ucladd was not capable of doing so. That's when Liam got the bright idea of using his Chaos Pearl as a device to store the degeneration. The degeneration only affected his nerves and muscles. The Chaos Pearl was neither of these things. It was a circular sphere made from a powerful brass metal that was nigh unbreakable. As soon as it flowed through the thick layer of goblin meat, it slowly flowed towards Liam's left hand, where all the degeneration was. Instantly, the entirety of the black mass left Liam's arm and swirled around the Chaos Pearl. They're naturally attracted, Liam thought with furrowed brows. How? Slowly, the infectious matter seeped into the pearl. N-0 Veld 1N. Groaning, Liam felt a needle was stabbing him through the heart. You okay? Ucladd asked quickly as Liam fell to the ground. Fine, Liam wheezed. Give me a minute. Nevertheless, it took 8 seconds for the Chaos Pearl to fully absorb the black mass and adjust to it. Inside that little needle-tip-sized sphere, the two forces were clashing against each other. Then, the pain disappeared, and a short silence ensued. Ucladd remained quiet as Liam slowly rose to his feet, a slight frown on his skinny face. It's combined, Liam realized with wide eyes. Indeed, the volatile chaos and the infectious degeneration had found a strange harmony within the Chaos Pearl. They're not merged, but they've found a way to coexist inside the pearl, Liam thought. Well, not really. Chaos tried to overwhelm the degeneration, but like the stubborn thing it was, the black mass didn't disappear. A moment later, it rooted itself onto the surface of Liam's Chaos Pearl. And that was that. Now what? Please don't work against me like everything else. Do you have something I can test this with? Liam asked Ucladd. The black stuff just got sucked into the pearl. Ucladd raised his brows. Does it hurt? He asked. Liam shook his head. No, but it makes me feel like something's living inside my chest. Ucladd hummed in response, but didn't ask any further. Is a rank 3 good enough? He asked. Liam nodded. From his inner world, a rank 3 dark wolf emerged. Alive, but domesticated. Liam didn't ask why Ucladd kept something like that. Instead, Liam gathered some of the plaguish substance on the tip of his index. As it passed through, Liam didn't feel pain. It was like a pocket of air traveling through water. Eventually, it arrived at Liam's finger, turning it black with barely visible tints of red. It wasn't like darkness, which surged with flames. Liam could mold, stretch and squeeze it, but it was still ethereal, similar to chaos. Instead of being volatile, though, it was a mix between liquidish and smoky. Did it inherit the properties of the Chaos Pearl after it attuned to it? How does that work exactly? Liam furrowed his brows. Turns out, he didn't know everything about what the Chaos Pearl entailed. Nevertheless, Liam flicked his fingers forward as hard as he could. But nothing happened. It still clung stubbornly to Liam's finger. It seems I have to get physical for it to work. Liam walked up to the dark wolf. It growled at him in a warm way, flipping around itself to expose its belly. It was demanding a belly rub. Did you seriously choose a dog of all things for me to test this on? Liam asked Ucladd with furrowed brows. Ucladd scoffed derisively. You care about humans more than a pet dog? Liam remained silent. Nevertheless, Ucladd recalled the dark wolf and replaced it with an untamed mountain bear. That's better, Liam thought as the bear lunged at him with a roar. Liam pivoted his foot and swerved to the side, jabbing a sharp, plague-covered finger at the beast's side. Simply touching the bear did no damage. It has to tear into the body, then, Liam thought. Liam's finger easily stabbed into the beast's flesh, and the black substance left his hand. The bear thumped limply on the ground, moaning with agony. Crouching to the bear's side, Liam watched the process intently with Ucladd beside him. The black mass spread across the bear's body like vines growing around a tree. Everywhere it went, the bear's fur weightlessly fell off, revealing the wrinkled skin beneath. The bear didn't have the energy to cry out anymore. It wheezed and convulsed uncontrollably. The effect lasted for 6 long seconds, before the infectious matter eventually puffed out. Silence. The unfortunate bear suffered a slow death afterwards. Liam pursed his lips pensively. Unlike what Halfhead did to Liam, the plaguish substance did not linger indefinitely. Ucen blinked several times. So, you're telling me you've somehow absorbed this Halfhead's corruption power and made it your own? Liam paused. Corruption. That's a good name, Liam thought. Then, he nodded. That's what my body's telling me, Liam responded. How much of it can you use? Ucen asked. It's half my chaos reserves, Liam said bitterly. But the other half is filled with corruption. Before, Liam could conjure 10 large spheres of chaos to throw, shape or use as a spell. But now, he could do just 5. 5 for chaos. 5 for corruption. Though, it was important to note that Liam couldn't use corruption from a distance. Obviously, he'd test it out some more later on. Right now, he had more pressing matters. There's still the Kitsune's deal to worry about, Liam thought, glancing at his abdomen. The Kitsune tattoo was brighter than ever. It was telling Liam to hurry up. Liam looked at Ucen with a firm face. I'm done with rest. You can tell me what happened while I was gone. Chapter 353 Politics. First thing you should know is that the inheritance was public to a few powerhouses, Ucen said with a low voice. He was past the point of reprimanding Liam for not taking care of his health. Liam frowned instantly. And before long, it'll be spread around the world. Liam's frown turned into a scowl. Once the Moyong family realized they didn't win the inheritance, they let the cat out of the bag. Liam's scowl turned into a grimace. Parents are already naming their children Bob in hopes they'll become grandmasters. Despite Bob and Liam Royce being different identities, Liam had swallowed the Eternal Sword's jade pill. Anyone that looked at Bob would feel their skin rise. Anyone that looked at Liam would feel their skin rise. But the issue wasn't that. Liam didn't mind keeping his appearance changed for long periods of time. But the issue was in creating a new persona or even hiding in general. Once they identify my aura, they'll memorize it and make sure I won't be able to hide amidst the crowd. Damn you, Eternal Sword. You filthy attention-seeking. It's a problem for another day, Ucen said. Come, let's head to the archives. Archives? Liam asked. Becoming a powerhouse gives you certain connections. Work hard. You might become one day, Ucen said with a smirk. Liam just shook his head. Tell me what happened during your trials on the way, Ucen said, and your abilities. Ucen and Liam headed outside. It was Liam's first time seeing the outside world since a year and a half. The Temple of Shadow has grown to a high level throughout the past year. The island was covered with miniature pyramids, vast beast encampments, and training areas for new recruits. New defensive measures were created. From all areas, acolytes and disciples went this way and that. Watching from a high viewpoint made them seem like little ants. The total number of acolytes within the temple rose to 18,000, which was an amazing number. Even some of the 7 clans couldn't boast about such forces. And this wasn't considering the alliances the temple had. All in all, the Temple of Shadow was now a force to be reckoned with. But then I felt the recall rune tap against me inside the water, and my tentacle sprouted out to crush it, bringing me back home. As Liam concluded his explanation, Ucen could only laugh. What about you? Have you found a way to extend your life? Liam questioned, entering through a basement guarded by various elders. Barely, Ucen answered. Liam and Ucen stood between a massive library within the underground of the island. Rows and rows of shelves filled with books were lined across the wooden floors. Warm chandeliers hung from above, and the place looked as cozy as one's home. Liam didn't waste a second and started skimming through the shelves. Most were books pertaining to history and the world's past. It ranged from the type of extinct plants and species to ancient figures of the world. Liam's face lit up a bit. Where'd you get all of this? Liam asked Ucen as he wandered away, running his hand through the bookshelves. Trades with the major clans. Don't stray off. I brought you to look at the maps, Ucen called out from the center, where a large circular table lay. though, try and find the 5 worldly artifacts book by the corner. It's relevant. Liam raised a brow. His curiosity was piqued by the name, though. Liam found the book, plain and thin, and instantly rummaged through it. Each page only needed a glance to be read and understood fully. Is this a children's story or something? Liam asked, snapping the book shut. What Liam read was pretty childish. 5 worldly artifacts were made by the great Emperor Menadian to cement his legacy as the greatest emperor to ever walk the earth. They were a cloak, staff, dagger, crown, and ring. After his death, the artifacts scattered throughout the lands, seas, and skies. They say whoever finds the 5 artifacts and combines them, unlocks the secret to incredible knowledge and wealth. Novel B. In. Ucladd glanced at Liam with a smile. It's no myth, Ucladd said. Liam raised his brows. In fact, it's what the Imperial Legion has been trying to do, Ucladd continued, frowning. The general isn't invading and conquering because he has a greater objective in mind. Well, key to incredible knowledge and wealth does sound enticing. Ucladd gestured for Liam to approach the circular table. On the large table, there was one single map detailing the entirety of the human and alien continents. It was inscribed, too, showing animated oceans and moving clouds. However, countries like the abyssal lands where the Imperial Legion resided in weren't outlined. Neither were the countries of Iho and Nuren to the west and south. And the Corsan lands weren't very detailed either. For the next few minutes, Ucladd explained in depth the landscapes of the world. In short, there was Ikoria, the Imperial Legion, the Dual Empire, Alali, Iho, and Nuren. Iho was a country only specialized in alchemy, led by the father of alchemy. Nuren was a country only specialized in inscriptions, led by the eyes of knowledge. For this reason, they were enemies. Past them were countries that weren't well known, and didn't have a noticeable powerhouse. Ikoria was neutral, mostly. Alali was also neutral, but against their desire. And the Dual Empire. The Dual Empire has attacked one another, Ucladd revealed, tapping his finger on a country to the north. A civil war of sorts. A smile formed on Ucladd's face. The country's shape was an oval shape, resembling a baguette. The left half was pure white in color. The right half was pure black. Besides their general color, there weren't any details. Why have they fought? Liam asked with pursed lips. Who cares why? Ucladd asked with a firm voice. Lovers quarrel, probably. The thing is, they're susceptible to attack. And when they're at their weakest, we'll swoop in and take them by surprise. Chapter 354 Prepare. Hearing a nigh declaration of war, Liam furrowed his brows a bit. Empress of Fear and Emperor of Courage, Ucladd explained. These are the 2 in charge of the Dual Empire. They were indeed lovers at once. But they've had a falling out. Or so I've been told. Liam's eyes widened. You were serious about the lovers' quarrel part? Liam asked incredulously. Ucladd nodded with an amused snort. The black side of the country belongs to the Empress of Fear. The white side belongs to the Emperor of Courage. Both countries work in similar ways, but also contrast with one another. For the Empire of Courage, those higher ranked will live above those below them. For the Empire of Fear, it's the opposite. The lower ranked folks are at the top, while the higher ranked live at the bottom. Both their empires are massive. And their war is somewhat controlled. It's only between their borders. The monarchs themselves aren't fighting though. Just their underlings. Liam took a deep breath to digest the explanation. A controlled war. Meaning, the 2 monarchs probably agreed on certain conditions before sending out their forces. Which begged the question, was this really a lover's quarrel? Or was it something deeper? Wars happened because of resources, plots of land, and deep-rooted conflicts with ideology and whatnot. Not because 2 lovers grew bored and wanted a spectacle. Or did they? Cultivators were not normal people. Who knew what went through their minds? I just came back and you want me to enlist in a war? Liam asked sarcastically. This isn't really the time to splurge on resources. But I'm sure you knew that, Liam added. I know, Yusin responded. I'm not asking you to drop in the middle of their war and start swinging your blade. We'll focus on smaller territories before building upwards. Nov. LB/N. Although I hate to admit it, the Imperial Legion is too strong. The Icorians outnumber everyone else. Iho and Nurin didn't do us wrong. But a crack has appeared in the impregnable walls of these two empires. Silence. Yusin's face turned grim. I don't have much longer to live, he said firmly. 6 to 8 months are left in the tank. Silence. Liam's face turned slightly dark at the change in mood. It doesn't have to be now, Yusin said. But I won't be there to support you once this passes over. Liam suppressed the urge to curse. Of course, Liam didn't really blame Yusin for his way of thinking. Everyone had different motivations and goals. It just so happened that Yusin's goal was self-destructive and unwise. Liam glanced at the black blade sigil on his left arm with a complicated gaze. A Celestial's heir, albeit not a complete one, was a dangerous threat with the biggest growth potential. The techniques given to them were downright ridiculous. Liam's greatest technique was undoubtedly mind edge, hone, and sword connection, with sword hardening being the last. And I didn't even attain the whole inheritance. All I got was Halfhead's corruption abilities. Maybe we could use that to our advantage. Tell the world I'm not a full heir. Still, if the Dual Empire knew Liam was out in the open, why wouldn't they wipe away such a threat? They'd be saving themselves a headache for the years to come. But powerhouses rarely dabbled in matters below their interest. If every rank 6 cultivator got paranoid and killed off a rank 5, the world would be in disarray. But although Liam's reputation wasn't that infamous by now, it was growing. Liam pursed his lips with thought. What if we take an ally? Liam asked Yusin, who raised his brow in response. A big one. Who? Yusin questioned. Not even Quan wants to take part in this. Liam lowered his head. Paused, then looked up with a slight smirk. You didn't mention the Corson lands, he said. Yusin looked taken aback. The vampires? He asked. The other races are all out of reach. Liam's smirk grew. During my time at the academy, I was given a job to infiltrate their country and bring back info on their dealings. Yusin made an impressed face. They use human as livestock and grow them in farms. Yusin's face grew dim. Liam continued, but if you look past that, they're not weak. A short pause. But I even brought back a living vampire for them to interrogate and question, Liam said. Yusin blinked, then started to laugh. Liam ignored the laughter and continued. If the vampire I brought back is still alive, I have a plan. Which is? Yusin asked with an interested brow. Liam proceeded to tell Yusin the plan. As he explained the details, Yusin's eyes slowly widened. Then, it ended with a pensive silence. You're mad if you make this work somehow. Liam shrugged. Won't hurt to try. By the way, you have any rank 5s for me to munch down? Liam asked. The question had been on the back of his mind for some time now. During his stay at the fake dimension, Liam wasn't able to progress his blood by a lot. Eating magical beasts helped, but it was barely enough for nourishment. Just 2, Yusin said bitterly after a short pause. Liam stared at him blankly. Several seconds passed. I know. I'm working on fulfilling my end of the bargain, Yusin said placatingly. But it's difficult to find, and kill them without the world noticing. But you wouldn't have gotten Eternal Sword's inheritance without my help either. That counts for something, right? Yusin said with a hopeful tone. Liam grumbled but remained silent. Yusin handed over the 2 rank 5 bodies. Liam didn't recognize either of them. But he really couldn't care less. Throwing the bodies in his inner world, Liam turned to leave. I'll be on my way, then, Liam said. Prepare well. A few weeks passed. By then, most of Liam's wounds were healed, including his cracked mental sphere. Now, there were only faint markings on its surface. Now, Liam needed to prepare for this plan. Chapter 355 Ocean. In the past few weeks, Liam caught up with most of the temple and the blood troop. Everyone was doing just fine. Liam felt strange meeting people after so long. There were a few banquets hosted in his honor, and he attended them after being forced by Ryu and the likes. Liam expected there to be some sort of emotion with their reunion, but nothing. Liam felt absolutely nothing out of the ordinary when meeting his fellow acolytes. It was like he'd seen them every day for the past year. As they laughed and chatted and got drunk, Liam faked a smile, his thoughts idly drifting towards what his plan was for the future. There was a time that Darius would have enjoyed these things, Liam suddenly thought. The silence that followed was deafening. Dwelling on those feelings wouldn't change a thing. He'd long accepted who he was. Instead, Liam put most of his focus into this plan of his. What was this plan? Going to the Corsan lands. Why? To meet with the higher-ranking vampires. What for? To create an alliance and take the dual empire by surprise. The Corsan lands weren't actually just one island. Judging by the inscribed maps Ucladd had given him, they were a vast collection. Most of these islands belonged to the vampires. But everyone knew that dwarves and elves were hiding among them. But they didn't know where. The first thing Liam did was wolf down as much rank 5 flesh he could. As long as they didn't kill off Nive, there's a good chance for the vampires to take our side. Liam gnawed away an entire hand. She defected. They'd want to kill her. Liam gulped. But if the Icorians find out the vampires know about her, they'd kill her off to prevent a war, then pin everything on me. Liam took another bite. There was a good chance the royals had safeguards already in place for a problem like this. Liam's job required delicacy and finesse if he wanted to succeed. It should just be me and Ucladd. Having the elders there would make him look weak and dependent. They need to take it seriously. N/O/V/E/L/B-1N. Best case scenario, we meet Alucard and he doesn't rip us to pieces. Worst case scenario, we meet Alucard and he rips us to pieces. Ucladd was a powerhouse. But, as Liam already knew, not a real one. Not just strength-wise, but generally. One person climbs to the peak of a mountain with no gear, using only his bare hands and feet. The other takes a comfy helicopter ride to the peak with nothing in his way. There was just no experience, nor understanding. Another thing to worry about was the connections the vampires had with other human nations. Those human farms had to be supplied from somewhere. Liam crossed out the royals from the list of suspects. At least, for now. Why were they in need of info if they already had relations? It was possible that they weren't allowed inside, but it was slim. Iho and Nurin were too far from the Corsan lands. That left the Dual Empire and the Imperial Legion as the main suspects. But the Imperial Legion was closer of the two. There was also a very small chance of a weaker country providing them with humans. But there were no such countries around Corsa. 1 month passed. Liam put on a matte black, one-piece suit. Inscribed by the temple, it covered most of his body and outlined each muscle individually. It was silk-like, but stretchy and soft. It was a rank 4 middle-tier construct, made to transform together with Liam's triumvirate body. Putting it on, Liam left his massive, palace-like dwelling before meeting up with Ucladd. Outside, hordes of acolytes greeted Liam respectfully, making way as he went past. The island Liam was on was actually shaped like a slope. It wasn't like this before. But for utilization of land, Ucladd ordered the elders to make it like so. And now, Liam was at the peak of such a slope with Ucladd beside him. Behind him were the 18,000 members of the temple. In front of him was the sparkling ocean stretching out towards the mainlands of Alali. Above him, stars. Ready? Ucladd said. With a few pills, Ucladd's appearance had temporarily reverted to a healthy complexion. His skin was no longer as pale. And his cheekbones weren't poking anymore. Also, he was wearing the same suit Liam was, but of a higher quality. Yeah, Liam said. Good to go. At once, both Ucin and Liam dove into the water. As they fell, their suits spread to cover their faces, then their shadows enveloped it all. But Ucin's shadow suddenly connected to Liam's, like a tiny little tendril. They looked like two little black javelins shooting at the oceans. This wasn't the easiest way to arrive at Corsa. But it was the most covert and quiet. Not many people paid heed to the oceans compared to land. Even though the depths held terrifying creatures. Splash. When Liam made contact with the water, he continued plunging to the depths without losing any momentum. Like two bullets, they shot through the water. For several minutes, they continued undisturbed. Liam passed through colorful ecosystems and diverse sea creatures. Some stronger creatures noticed Liam and attempted to attack him. But Liam was insanely fast due to Ucin's shadow link. It basically connected Liam's speed to Ucin's. And Ucin had a rank 6 body. All he did to create such a powerful speed was kick his shadow-empowered legs, causing violent vortexes to form behind them. They continued until reaching the depth that rank 5 beasts usually lived at. 1 hour passed. They were more than 7,500 meters deep. Unnatural darkness was everywhere. Liam's king's eye could only peer at 100 meters. Usually, a massive pressure would push against Liam's chest and crush his lungs due to the water pressure. But there was no such thing due to Ucin's shadow. Liam saw glowing eyes in the darkness and massive, vague forms eerily swim past him. Like this, they would continue on towards Corsa. Chapter 356 Depths. The trip to Corsa would take at least 2 to 3 weeks. Even with Ucin's incredible speed to put them there. However, they had to make several stops throughout the journey. Liam could breathe perfectly fine since his suit recycled oxygen from the water and supplied him with it. But the reason they had to stop now and again was much simpler. The depths were scary. And they were not fully explored. In fact, that was truer for the world Liam was in. On Earth, only 5% of the ocean was explored. Here, the world was much bigger than normal. At least 4 times the size of Earth. If it was not so, the powerhouses of the world would wage war constantly over land and rare resources. However, this also meant the oceans were stupidly vast. Even if there were more means to explore the ocean, like Ucin and Liam were doing right now, they had to be careful. There were cultivators who explored the seas and studied them thoroughly. They were called oceaners. But there was a limit to what they could do because of the ocean's incredible vastness. At a level of 6,500 meters, only peak rank 5 cultivators could venture in. Around 10,000 to 15,000 meters, they would meet terrifying sea creatures birthed from nightmares. At that length, only powerhouses could venture through. But since Liam was with him, Ucin didn't go that deep. Not to mention, even mermaids lived under the tides, who were known to be hostile to foreigners. Spending time at the archives gave Liam some well-versed knowledge. It even outweighed the academy in terms of detail. Through that, Liam learned that mermaids lived beneath the oceans. They were the ones who made that giant bubble that surrounded the academy. Liam always thought that was peculiar. He had yet to see a water elemental using bubbles as a weapon. But it also means that the Aquarians somehow made a deal with the mermaids. Liam relayed that information to Ucin before they took on the journey. To steer clear of the Aquarian waters entirely. Knowing them, they had their own methods of knowing who passes their territories. Trying to figure out who Halfhead was a dead end, Liam thought. Obviously, Liam had to research the man with the corruption powers. But nothing came up. It wasn't like Liam had a name of any kind to search for. Just a vague description. Nevertheless, the journey continued. Liam couldn't even see the ocean floor. But even then, a few cute sea creatures passed by him now and again. Even in terrifying depths such as these, there was non-hostile life. Eerie whistles and clicking noises resounded through the water. If Liam wasn't protected, his eardrums would have exploded by now. Since sound passed differently through water, one couldn't exactly know where the source was. Something deafening could come from a weak creature an incredible distance away. But something quiet could come from a terrifying beast from nearby. Something cute could be murderous. Something vicious could be friendly. Who could tell? Indeed, the ocean was terrifying. After 1.5 weeks of traveling, Ucladd and Liam stopped. Liam felt chills creeping up and down his body. Like he was being watched from all sides. But he couldn't see who was watching him. All around him was darkness. Here, his king's eye did nothing special. It only illuminated a distance of. "Don't move," Ucladd transmitted, his tone extremely grave. "Dim your eye." Liam felt his heart sink, but he didn't dare move. Instantly, his king's eye color flickered to black. And his crimson eye turned black as well. Ucladd's shadows thickened around both their figures. Unnatural silence. There was no sound whatsoever. A few minutes passed before Liam saw something approaching from a distance. A little gray dot. Slowly, the dot grew bigger. And bigger, and bigger. Until it had covered their entire vision. For 30 minutes straight, it continued growing. Then, it was swimming past them both. It was gray and slightly greenish in color, but the texture of its skin was uneven. Barnacles and smaller, symbiotic organisms were attached to its body. But even the tiniest specimens were zeniths, with the bigger ones being rank 5s. This monster was just an arm's length away from Liam and Ucladd. Despite its monstrous size, the water currents weren't affected. As though the creature was weightless. Slowly, it opened an eye the size of a mountain. A myriad of bright colors suddenly colored the darkness. Blue, purple, and green. They were almost neon-like, and the iris itself was a zigzag shape that crackled like lightning. Then, it opened another eye of the same kind. And another as it swam past. Its entire side was lined with a dozen neon-like eyes. Silence. A few minutes of unnerving, chilling silence passed. The creature let out a low, almost human-like hum that spread across the waters. But it sounded deceptively far away. Not finding anything to eat, the eyes slowly shut, and the creature drifted to the opposite direction. It took another 30 minutes for its figure to turn into a dot, then merge with the darkness. "That was not supposed to appear at this depth," Ucladd transmitted with a wry tone. "We probably swam over its habitat, so it came to investigate," Ucladd added. "Probably saw your glowing eyes and spotted us." Liam was suddenly hyperventilating inside the suit. He didn't even see its full form. Just its eyes. "Was that a rank 6 magical beast?" Liam asked in between his erratic breaths. End.N. "Indeed," said Ucladd. This was a cruel reality check of where Liam stood despite all his strengths. Chaos. Corruption. Triumvirate. King's eye. Void. Sword. Blood. Assurance strength. What did all this mean in front of something like that? Nothing. Ucladd wordlessly swam forward again. At a higher depth this time, in case they met with another one of those hideous things. And the rest of the journey was quiet. Chapter 357 Meeting. The journey continued. Liam's mind drifted to the rank 6 magical beast. It was strangely reminiscent of the nightmare Liam had in The Inheritance. But that was a dream, and this was reality. Still, both were terrifying in their own ways. As another week passed, the water gradually underwent a change of color. Blood. The oceans gained a crimson tint. "We're near," Ucladd transmitted. In reality, doing this sort of thing was difficult for Ucladd. Traveling underwater while protecting Liam and keeping underwater. Regularly using his powers was bad for his health. If Ucladd was a true rank 6, he definitely would have killed the rank 6 beast. But instead, he chose not to fight it. Nevertheless, the underwater venture was coming to an end. At the same time, the sea creatures that passed by the pair were much more disfigured and vicious-looking. "I've never seen sea life be so ugly before," Liam thought as his gaze scanned the surroundings. The blood from so many vampires had corrupted the oceans, lands, and everything in between to an ugly degree. The waters were not as dark and murky anymore. Liam could see clearer, but the shadow disguise was not as effective. At one point, the ocean floor got higher and higher, forcing them to swim above the lower depths. At the same time, the upper ocean levels were infested with blood piranhas. And these creatures obviously tried to attack the two invading shadows. But their thin, fang-like teeth weren't able to pierce through Yusin's shadowy armor. Eventually, the Corson lands came into view. The island was still shrouded with a palpable layer of fog, hiding it from spying eyes. But as Liam looked closer, it's even thicker than before. They've updated their defenses, Liam thought. Indeed, the Wraith Fog, as Liam called it, was stronger than Liam remembered it. It was taller and covered more land, too. But these defenses did nothing to deter Yusin. The two could enter the Sea of Darkness and slowly pass into the city. And that's what they planned on doing, anyway. As soon as the pair made contact with the lands, they easily entered the Sea of Darkness. From one water to the next. Then, they swam forward. Instantly, Liam could feel the Sea of Darkness brimming with violent ripples coming from all sides. Yusin's shadow still had to cover Liam as they passed through the shadowy ocean. Through that, Liam could actually open his eyes and peer above. He could see through the ground. Liam saw the feeding grounds where the mindless vampires killed each other to evolve into a higher life form. Past that, he saw the higher vampires that governed the feeding grounds. Along with the human farms that looked blissfully unaware of their circumstances. Though, everything had a black and white filter, and it was a bit hazy from that distance. Yusin frowned at that sight. One had to remember that Yusin started this whole quest of revenge for the sake of his country. For the sake of bringing to justice people who killed innocents. But then again, to Yusin, the ends justified the means. Liam followed the same line of thinking. Allying with people who ate human flesh for the meantime was a necessity. That said, Liam noticed how fortified and defensive the country was now. Blood-made formations covered the grounds, and the castles that people like the Bloodder lived in were much tighter knit. Can't blame them. Whoever was in charge of defense must have gotten executed by now. Defenses didn't mean much against someone who phased through the earth, though. Yusin ignored every little defensive measure they made and wordlessly surged towards the citadel. Although Yusin could teleport with his shadows, using that here was the dumbest way to get killed. One couldn't waltz into another's home and demand to be friends. It was also why Liam scrapped the idea of kidnapping an important higher vampire and keeping him hostage. There it is, Liam thought as the citadel appeared not far out. The spires and towering structures were still visible through the massive border. Bats and aerial creatures flew overhead. And most important of all was the elevated plateau with a shroud of fog domed around it. Tiny canals, veins and rivers of blood from the entire region traveled up the plateau. To Alucard's castle. Nobody really knew what was inside except them, though. Maybe it was a hut, for all Liam knew. However, there was a small platform that was at the foot of the plateau. It seemed as though one could ascend and descend from it. They passed the layers that the higher vampires lived in. No going back from this, Yusin said to Liam as they hovered beneath the platform. Just don't attack at the first sign of trouble. Then, Liam and Yusin left the Sea of Darkness, emerging right on top of the platform. Whoosh! Screech! Roar! Not 1 minute passed before they were swarmed with rank 4 and rank 5 vampires riding on bats, bloodhounds, and other beasts. They were detected by the magical formations. Who are you? A woman shrieked at them with bared fangs. Like all vampires, she was pale. In particular, though, the woman had red markings on her lips and eyebrows. Red hair flowed behind her back, while her eyes constricted dangerously. Through the king's eye, her aura was surging with red energies. She's a rank 5. All around them were similar vampires. Silence will result in getting attacked, a tall, muscular, broad-chested vampire with a square face growled. Another rank 5. Liam and Yusin didn't respond. They were both unflinching despite the demands of who they were and why they were there. And the vampires couldn't attack either. After all, two unknown figures appeared on their front doorstep without a single soul noticing. From one of them, they felt their skin being pricked with needles. And from the other, they felt the air grow dark and dangerous. Alucard, Ucladd said plainly, an unfazed look on his face. Meeting. There was a fragile silence. The vampires looked like they wanted to lurch out and attack them. But slowly, the platform Liam and Ucladd were on started to ascend. no/v-.l-b/b/1 The vampires' eyes went wide as they saw their enemy heading to their pasha's dwelling. Liam turned to Ucladd with slightly wide eyes. I think he just invited us in. Chapter 358 Meeting. As they ascended, Ucladd gave Liam a tense side glance as he looked up towards the approaching plateau. The citadel below them grew smaller and smaller, and the sounds of bat screeches dimmed. I don't like this, Ucladd said mentally. I have a feeling he knew we were here all along. Liam's face grew a little dark. Vampires didn't have mental energy or known methods of deduction. Nor did they have any sort of detection abilities aside from the magical formations they made. An oval bin. But then again, Liam didn't know the full extent of the higher ranks. Not even the archives helped him there. Liam was a little fish swimming in a big pond. Thus, Ucladd's feelings were probably correct, but still unconfirmed. At least he didn't give himself back up, Liam responded, but it sounded like he was reassuring himself. He easily could have, too. A short pause. Or maybe he's just confident in his own abilities enough not to need any support, Ucladd added grimly. Nevertheless, they were here. Besides, they both had their fail-safes. If at any point in the meeting Ucladd sensed a sliver of danger, he would teleport both of them out in the blink of an eye. But in that case, the vampire Pasha himself would be an enemy of Ucladd. This entire meeting was a double-edged sword. That outcome was to be avoided at all costs. Soon enough, the pair poked through the shroud of dense fog. Nothing happened. There was no pain of any kind that assaulted them. Either it was harmless from the start, or the vampire king made it that way just for the two. Either way, it unnerved both Liam and Ucladd. Then, both of them peeked over the plateau. What awaited them past the dome of mist was a massive, mighty grey castle made of ashen brick. It was several 100 kilometers wide, and the only word Liam thought upon seeing it was mighty. And it really was. It was a medieval-style building, menacing and eerie all at the same time. Torches of blue fire illuminated the walls of the mighty palace, casting azure hues over the barren ground. There were no windows there whatsoever, making it seem like some sort of impregnable fortress. The bottom of such a fortress was rooted into the ground. A testament to how ancient it truly was. The stench of blood had faded away here, despite the little veins of blood that were transported towards the castle. In fact, it smelled like modern perfume, which was disturbingly strange. Right ahead was a massive gate that provided an entrance to the castle. It was closed. But as soon as Liam and Ucladd left the platform and stepped onto the plateau ground, the gate slowly descended. Boom! As it hit the ground, a slight shockwave spread across the dome. Then, the platform itself descended back to the city. Not creepy at all, Liam thought. Sharing a look between themselves, Liam and Ucladd took wary steps towards the entrance. The inside was vastly different to the outside of the castle. Warm chandeliers lit up the interior. Red carpets and ornate wooden furnishing decorated the entrance. Surreal paintings of landscape and seemingly random colors of crimson were hung on the walls. Bats flew by here and there, chirping as they hung from the ceiling. Long hallways led to different parts of the castle. But as the pair entered, the illuminated corridors went dim except for one specifically. A hallway that led deeper inside. All in all, it looked more like a museum compared to a human-eating powerhouse's home. But then again, Liam ate humans too, so he wasn't in any place to judge. Ucladd, on the other hand, had a cryptic, firm expression on his face. Liam was not anxious. Well, deep down, he was. But that didn't show at all in his thoughts or expression. Both went deeper into the fortress, passing through several corridors and hallways. Eventually, there were two massive double doors that a giant could pass through. A dark aura radiated from behind the doors. Something sinister. Yusin's shadows darkened around him. If there was a battle coming, so be it. Using both hands, Yusin pushed the door open. Inside was a vast, rectangular hall room lit by a bright, crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling. Instead of being a grim room made from skulls and fresh corpses, it looked more like a politician's decorated office. Tall shelves filled with all kinds of books were placed against the wall. From the left and right, spiral stairs made from marble connected the hall to an upper floor. A spacious mahogany desk was placed at the end of the hall, paired with an ornate, throne-like chair. On top of the table was an inkpot with a quill pen inside. Behind it was a portrait of the Pasha himself. Tap. 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 Someone was descending from the staircase, their footsteps tapping crisply against the marble stairs. I wasn't expecting visitors at this time, a crisp voice echoed. To what do I owe this pleasure? The raspy voice sounded like a perfect mix of authority and menacing gentlemanliness. The king of vampires took his time descending the stairs. The first was the shoes. They were black, clean, crisp shoes a businessman wore, not someone who drank blood and devoured humankind. And his following attire further cemented the businessman look. Alucard wore a silky black suit for the occasion. His tie, tucked underneath the black blazer, was pearly white, contrasting against the black. The king of vampires himself had the appearance of a handsome old man with deep, menacing crimson eyes. Short, snow-white hair, slicked back and glistening, along with a perfectly trimmed beard of a similar color decorated his ashen face. And yet, the chilling aura the man radiated was well beyond Liam's expectations. It felt like he was staring at death's physical form. Beads of warm sweat formed on Liam's forehead. From the side, Liam glanced at Yusin. Just to see him with a similar bead of sweat running across his temple. Wordlessly, Alucard walked over to the mahogany desk and took a sit on the throne-like chair, then steepled his fingers on the table. Now, Alucard said with a cryptic smile, flashing a set of pearly teeth. Let us talk. Chapter 359 Monster. Alucard's gaze was piercing and simultaneously hard. His nails were sharp and black, but well taken care of. Curiously, though, his teeth were human-like. No fangs protruded from his mouth, as Liam was led to believe from various stories back on Earth. The king of vampires momentarily glanced at Liam, lingered for a few seconds, then looked back to Yusin. Liam didn't know where the feeling of dread and unease came from. Just being around Alucard made his stomach nauseous. And yet, everything about the man was perfect. The appearance. The decorum. The manners. The eloquence. Not a thing was out of place. And yet it felt so very wrong. The situation reminded Liam of Revel, the blood-weaving pioneer and his dear-departed teacher. The sickly old man had a way with words. May your blood perforate terror into Alucard's nexus. And now, the complete opposite was happening. Liam suppressed the anxiousness as much as he could, maintaining a somewhat dignified look. Yusin beat him to the punch by heaving a slight breath and regaining his composure. The bead of perspiration on his temple dissipated, too. Alucard smiled lightly. Please, Alucard said gentlemanly. Sit. With a flash of red light, two wooden chairs suddenly appeared in front of the mahogany desk, placed opposite to the vampire king. Obviously, they weren't as majestic and grand as Alucard's throne, but a smaller version. Seeing that, Liam barely managed to hide his surprise. To his knowledge, vampires did not have any significant storage powers. Space rings required mental energy to function. Nov/1b1n. But then again, spells like the inner world also provided storage. If Alucard was a rank 6, it probably wasn't hard for him to make a storage device. His blood-red aura is strange, too. It's controlled to an amazing degree, and it doesn't even waver. What's causing this damn sickness, then? Liam inwardly cursed. Yusin was about to decline the offer, but the sinister atmosphere faded away. And the emetic feeling disappeared. Liam was close to Yusin's side, but getting closer to the pasha made his stomach hurt to a painful degree. Now that it was no longer there, he could sit down. Not sitting down was also not good. It would show cowardice and rude manners. And since they were the ones asking for an alliance, they couldn't afford to offend. "Thank you," Yusin said as he took a seat. Liam sat to his right. The three were positioned in a triangular fashion. "Forgive the attire. Usually, I don't go for formal wear, but something told me this meeting is quite important," Ucladd said with his usual light smile. "It is," Yusin said. "I've never seen that attire before," he added with a slight curiosity in his tone. "A relic of the past," Ucladd said, adjusting his tie. "Almost no one wears such clothing anymore. A shame, really. But all the better for me," he smiled again. Liam remained quiet. Right now, he wasn't being addressed in the least. Ucladd and Yusin were the big boys here. He was just a +1. "I'm Yusin. From Alali, Temple of Shadow," Yusin introduced after the pleasantries were over. "I'm familiar," Ucladd said with a short nod. "I heard there was quite a party at your awakening," he chuckled to himself. There was no need for Ucladd to introduce himself. Yusin and Liam already knew. "Hardly a party," Yusin scoffed lightly. "They brought no gifts." A quaint laugh was shared between them. "What's with this atmosphere?" Liam thought silently, hiding a frown. "And why are they bantering? Was this how world leaders began talks of war? Where'd the suffocating air go?" Suddenly, Ucladd side-glanced at Liam, before turning towards him. "I take it you're the one from the sword inheritance?" Ucladd asked curiously. "Your eyes are sharper than mine," he laughed. Silence. Liam's appearance was altered, and his black blade sigil hidden from view. But news traveled faster than sound. Liam nodded firmly to the question. Silence again. "I wonder," Ucladd said in a quiet, slightly sinister voice, "how come I see my mark on you?" A pause. "Mark?" Liam asked, holding back the urge to scowl. Yusin remained quiet. He couldn't interrupt. Every little word, action, and mannerism in a meeting decided its outcome. Why would Yusin bring Liam over only to fight his battles for him? No, Liam had to hold his own weight. Otherwise, the respect Ucladd had would diminish for both of them. A short pause passed. "Your blood is not normal," Ucladd explained with a monotone voice. "It's pure, somehow. Similar to a vampire's." Liam was backed into a corner. If he answered truthfully, Ucladd would know about his abilities and involvement in the invasion years ago. If he lied, there was a chance for him to get called out for it. And that was even worse than the former choice. After all, Liam fully intended to reveal his involvement in invading their country anyway. But cards were meant to be held until a crucial time. 2 seconds of silence passed. "I ate a vampire's heart to purify my blood," Liam said. "And got blood manipulation abilities as a side effect." Liam tensed his hand, and his nails grew sharp like a vampire's, while blood seeped through his pores and coated his index finger. For just a second, Ucladd raised his brows. A chuckle briefly escaped his mouth. "Interesting. It's not even one kind of blood, either," was all Ucladd said. "It's several. Very interesting. Must have been difficult, too. A vampire's heart is bloody disgusting," he chuckled to himself again. Silence. How easily he brushed past one of his own being killed. He doesn't care at all, Liam thought. And he's definitely pretending he doesn't know I invaded his country. What a monster. If Ucladd was testing him, Liam had passed. Probably. Yusin watched wordlessly from the side. With their interaction over, Yusin brought it back to the topic at hand. "I'll cut straight to the point," he said seriously. "We want an alliance." Chapter 360 Proof. Hearing the word alliance, Ucladd's face reverted to a neutral, pensive expression. There was silence, but the sounds of a calming orchestra began playing in the background. A gentle melody. Yusen didn't say why they needed an alliance. But that was for a very simple reason. They couldn't flat out say their intentions from the get-go. Why wouldn't Alucard simply notify the dual empire of the temple's goal? They could request something in return, while simultaneously pitting one country against another. On Earth, alliances were marked by betrayal. Even if two countries were at their friendliest relations, a simple disagreement over food could result in an all-out war. But obviously, things were different here. Wars were incredibly risky to initiate. Especially when dealing with powerhouses and the sort. Most of the time, the casualties suffered were above and beyond the realm of understanding. However, just as wars were risky, they were rewarding. No matter what casualties were suffered, so long as another powerhouse's resources were reaped, it didn't matter. Rank Sixs had vast reserves of accumulated wealth and rare resources, materials, and techniques. Their stash alone could fuel a country. Luckily, Yusen was not one of these people, so the bounty on his head was not as heavy. And yet, despite this massive prize to top it all off, a war still had repercussions. The aftermath of a war weakened even the victor's forces. What stopped another ruler from sweeping in and killing two birds with one stone? Nothing, really. Unless there were alliances. Even if it was an idle alliance in name, one couldn't take it lightly. Alucard leaned back and clicked his nails on the mahogany desk in a rhythmic fashion. To Liam's knowledge, Alucard did not have any public alliances. Sure, there was the flesh supplier he traded with. Maybe the Imperial Legion or the Dual Empire, or someone else entirely. But trading was not the same as allying. Even enemies traded sometimes. What sort of alliance? Alucard asked with a hard gaze. We won't bite off more than we can chew, Yusen replied seriously. A supportive alliance is in our interest. A supportive alliance was self-explanatory. If either of the countries were to fight, they would support each other. So long as it benefited both parties. We're roughly 18,000 in number, with a few hundred zeniths, Yusen explained. We're also allied with more than 24 rank 5 clans, and their numbers are similar to our own. In total, we should have about 70,000 total combatants. A similar number of support would suffice, Yusen concluded. Alucard hummed noncommittally. One had to remember the size of Corsa. It was a continent. Alucard's forces were in the millions. Obviously, Corsa wasn't owned entirely by Alucard. But the majority was. And here Yusen was, asking for an alliance from a person who was clearly in no need of it. And I'm guessing you'll tell me why I'll take this deal, Alucard questioned curiously. I don't mean to be rude, but you're crumbling apart, aren't you? Silence. News really traveled faster than sound. Yusen's disease was already public. Like the Pasha said, there was really no need to ally with the temple. Especially when considering that, in a few years, Yusen would not be alive. I know, Yusen said casually. But you would have kicked us out already if you didn't want to hear the rest. Alucard remained silent. Yusen continued with an unfazed expression. The uncalled-for invasion of your country years prior. Have you found your culprits? Lightly, Alucard's brows furrowed. But the atmosphere of the space changed. The gentle orchestra in the background gained an eerie, sinister tune. For a moment, the revolting feeling in Liam's stomach appeared, but vanished just as fast. We have, Alucard replied seriously. His crimson pupils grew a shade darker. A small country by the name of Piragi towards the south. They've already been dealt with. The escapees were also identified among them. Dealt with was a nice way of saying eradicated off the maps. It was Liam's first time hearing the word Piragi, meaning the royals kept parts of their invasion plan quiet. But Liam realized something much more important. Liam was mistaken about his earlier deduction. He doesn't know I was among the invaders. Liam hid a smirk. The majority of vampires lived in Corsa. There was no doubt in that. However, that didn't mean 100% of the population chose to say. Some defected and created groups themselves. They just needed outside help to get transported from Corsa. That was how Liam kidnapped Nive, after all. Perhaps that was what Alucard imagined Liam had done. Killed off a rogue vampire and devoured its nexus. My Minister of Security has long been executed, Alucard continued as though he spoke of the weather. One thing I hate more than deceit is laziness. Liam could agree with that. A tense pause followed. It wasn't pierogi, Ucladd cut in. Alucard's eyes constricted vertically at him. It was a choria. The orchestra in the background suffered an abrupt stop, making way for an uncomfortable silence. A bold claim, Alucard said blankly. Where's your proof, 9.1b.1n? Silence. Ucladd gestured to Liam. He was there. Silence. Alucard's gaze was aloof, but menacing and deathly. And you're offering me his head, yes? Alucard asked with a cold smile. Ucladd chuckled briefly. Liam suppressed the urge to glare at him. No, Ucladd said firmly. Who do you think ordered him to do what he did? Plus, there's living proof, Liam added calmly. A border vampire by the name of Nive is possibly still alive and working with the Icorians. Silence. Tap tap, tap. Tap tap, tap. Tap tap, tap. Alucard continued drumming his nails rhythmically, staring blankly at Liam. Unflinchingly, Liam held his gaze. After 5 seconds of stillness, Alucard spoke. This is beyond words. Bring me solid proof of their involvement, Alucard said, rising to his feet and adjusting his tie. Ucladd and Liam stood up with him. The Pasha flicked his fingers and a crude, stone-made token formed in his hands. A method of communication. Bring me proof, and you can consider me an ally, Alucard said, turning around and heading up the stairs. Until then, gentlemen, please take your leave.